Thank you. Good morning and welcome to Brighton Unitarian Church and to our service today. Those of you who are present here and those who are watching from home. If it's your first visit, you are especially welcome. My name is Susie and I'm an interfaith minister and member of the church. So let us start our service today by lighting our chalice flame. David, thank you. It's going to assist me. It's a flame of hope and a sign of welcome and our free religious faith. We light this candle to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our ways, that new truth is waiting to break through to illuminate our minds, and that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. May we be open to this light, this truth, this love, and to the rich possibilities that it brings. I may use words that feel unfamiliar to you, like God, but please substitute them for your own. Spirit of life and love, light within and without, mystery from which we have all emerged, within which we live and die. Be with us now as we allow ourselves to drop into the silent stillness at the center of our being. Our opening words are from my goddess wheel, which I have brought again today, because we've just had the Festival of Imbolc, and we're celebrating the return of the light, which is very, very welcome. Feel me now as maiden. I am the initiator. I am the twinkle of an idea. I am the spark that activates and inspires. I am the light that illuminates manifestation. I bring the energy that encourages the sleeping winter world to begin to stir. Feel my presence. I am the spark of life in all things. So I would like us to hold that divine feminine inspiration so needed today as we are going to look at some challenging and difficult things together. Wow. Last Saturday was Holocaust Memorial Day, a time to reflect and to remember those who were murdered in a terrifying genocide. 6 million people, not just Jewish families, but those who did not fit with the idealized version of what was good and proper. Romanis, homosexuals, communists. It was a time of prejudice and discrimination against those who were murdered for just being who they were. And this year's theme for Holocaust Memorial Day was the fragility of freedom. And we must never, ever forget that step by step, people's freedoms were gradually eroded by the Nazis, culminating in systemic murder and persecution. So today we're going to look at what it is to be human at a time when the world seems so fragile, and we look at how we can resist falling into despair. How can we maintain our faith when we are witnessing so much suffering? So our first hymn is a traditional Jewish one, and it's called, I don't think we've ever sung it actually, have we? Shalom Havarim. I don't know if that's well pronounced. It's hymn number 317 in the Green Book. Shalom Havarim. I could have stayed here, hadn't I? Thank you. So I'd like us to reflect today on what this all means for us as spiritual seekers of the truth, Unitarians who believe in principles of justice and equality. How are we all touched by this latest war, the war in Gaza? For many of us, and I count myself amongst them, it is personal, and it's hard to separate the personal from the political. When October the 7th happened, I, like everyone, was horrified. And I picked up the phone straight away to my cousins in Paris, Jerusalem, and Tel Aviv to send them my love and to reassure myself they were all safe. My father, who was a Jewish Hungarian refugee, had come aged 18 to England with his brother in 1936 and had made a home for himself here. He lost relatives in the Holocaust, and others fled from Europe to Israel or other parts of the world, like many refugees suffering trauma, loss, and displacement. He passed his suffering on to his children by default. He never talked about his faith with me. He put on a brave face and coped, always being eternally grateful for his sanctuary in Britain. But he believed anti-Semitism would always exist. So he allowed me to be brought up a Christian. He did talk to me about Israel, however. His brother had finally gone to live there on his 60th birthday, and his words were coloured by his own belief system and his traumatic life story. So I grew up with knowledge that was partial, as it filtered through his lens, particularly the fact that giving a homeland to the Jews was fair, and the displacement of the Palestinians, therefore, inevitable. He would claim it was unacceptable for the surrounding Arab countries to give little or no support or refuge, whilst failing to acknowledge the hardship suffered by them, the hardship of losing their homes. And so I was very interested to read in this month's Inquirer that Margaret Kirk had written a piece about this. And she says, home and homeland are both notions that carry a great weight of emotional baggage, and nowhere more so than in the Middle East, where for one ethnic group, the emotional baggage is not just around the notion of a homeland, but a promised land. The Old Testament Exodus story tells us about the Jewish people in captivity in Egypt who crossed the Red Sea, which magically rolled back its waters to allow them to escape their pursuers and cross into the desert of Sinai in search of the homeland God had promised them. This was the founding myth on which the religion of Judaism is based. So here we are today, face to face with those raw feelings experienced by both Palestinians and Israelis about their conflicting claims to the land. On one hand, Jews have been the victims of pogroms and persecutions for centuries. On the other, the Palestinian people had lived prior to 1948 in their land, their farms, bringing up their flocks of sheep and living peacefully with their Christian neighbours, were suddenly dispossessed and homeless. And Kirk says there are raw feelings on both sides and deep roots that give them succor. And she suggests we currently need men and women of extraordinary vision and commitment and compassion to find a path through this tragic human struggle, not based on their own self-interest, as was often the case in the past, but on what we believe is humanly just. So some of you may know I sing with a choir called Companion Voices, and we sing at the bedside of people who are dying. And I am so pleased and proud and grateful to Jane, who's come today to sing with us and help us through a lovely chant that we do together. And we sing it as a round and et cetera, et cetera. So Jane, would you like to talk us through and how are we going to do this? It's Shalom Salam. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Would you like to use that? Oh, yes, okay. Thank you.
Oops. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the founder of Companion Voices, you may know, some of you may know, is Judith Silver, and she put this song together because it's basically three blessings. Shalom, which is Hebrew for peace, Salam, Arabic for peace, and then there's a Celtic blessing that we sing underneath it. So Susie and I are going to do that bit later on when I've sung Shalom Salam with you. It's fairly simple. Could you give me a C, please? Thank you. I'll just sing it through and then I'll involve you. Shalom, shalom, shalom. And then again, salam, salam, salam. So, would you like to join me in singing that again? I'll try and do a natural voice hand movement, so I'm not very good at that. But anyway, okay, so just join in and we'll just sing it a few times. And then I'm going to divide you and this half of the room can sing shalom, this half salam. So we do both together. but I'll explain that in a minute. So, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. Salam, salam, salam. That sounds great. Thank you. Okay. Do you feel you got it, or do you want to go through that again? Once more. Great. Thank you. Okay. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Salam, salam, salam. That sounds lovely, actually, isn't it? So, right. How do you want to do it? Do we want to sing it together, the shalom and salam? Yeah?
Together first and then split them into two.
Okay, right. So we'll do it all together once more, and then we'll do one side and then the other side. Okay. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Salam, salam, salam. Okay, so we do shalom this side, salam this side, but one at a time, okay? Shalom, shalom, shalom. Salam, salam, salam. More? We're trying to do the round. Yeah, okay. So this is a bit more complicated. Yeah. So what happens is we start with shalom. When they've done their first shalom, you sing your first shalom. Salam. Sorry.
Like a round.
It's like a round, but yeah. Try. Okay.
It should be fine.
Should be fine. Okay. So right. Let's go. Okay. Shalom, salam, Let me sing it. Keep going.
Deep peace of the silence goes to you. Deep peace of Thank you so much, Jane. Well done, everybody. Well done. Well, one of those men of vision that Kirk was talking about needing was a Palestinian doctor called Izzeldin Abuelash. And I was very touched by his story in a book I read recently, I Shall Not Hate. He was brought up in Jalala refugee camp after his and his parents had been displaced from their home and went on to study medicine and became a doctor working both in Gaza hospitals and Israel. And he was friends with both Israelis and Palestinians. He believed his life's work, being a doctor, treating people, healing them, was the bridge that could unite his peoples. And on the 6th of January 2009, during one of the many Israeli-Palestinian wars, his 3 eldest daughters and his niece were killed when their bedroom in the family home in Gaza was ripped apart by Israeli shells. I Shall Not Hate is a powerful and moving account of one man's courage in the face of situations that would have defeated many of us. His reason for writing his memoir was to find a way to end the violence and hatred and find a way through to reconciliation. He was appalled that on both sides of the conflict, people were unwilling to stop the accusations that continued to sow hatred, which he believed eats away at the soul. His descriptions of finding his daughters' bodies was truly agonizing, and yet he said, "From the moment we got home with smashed buildings, collapsed bridges, and rubble all around us, I knew I had 2 choices, the path of darkness or one of light. If I chose darkness, poisonous hate and revenge, it would be like accelerating the conditions which engender disease. To choose the path of light, I had to think of my other children's future. The scorched earth policy, which had reduced 8 Jabalia refugee camp to rubble, came from the choice to wage war with hatred and a desire for revenge. That's the thing with war," he said. "It's never enough to disable the buildings. They are hit again and again to deny that people ever lived there." And understanding the catastrophe of the deaths of his daughters and niece strengthened his resolve to stop the cycle of violence. He did what he could control. He set up a foundation in memory of his daughters and niece to empower women and girls through health and education in the Middle East. He called it Daughters for Life. He says that one of the ways in which we can alter the status quo is to look to the women and girls. The Quran supports education, and there's no mention of a difference between men and women. The World Bank did a study over 5 years and found there was evidence that investing in women and girls is the way out of conflict, as a healthy society needs wise, educated women. I would say that, wouldn't I? Sorry, I'm just going to have some water. It's a little-known fact that Jewish and Palestinian women have been working and marching for peace for a long time now. In the UK, there is an organization called Nisa Nashin, a group of Muslim and Jewish women working for peaceful friendships. One of the members, Aisha, believes that if women were at the table, we would not be in the situation of seeing, I think there are more than 20 or so other conflicts currently around the world on top of Ukraine and Gaza. She says the one message in all our holy texts is love thy neighbor. The principle of the golden rule in religious beliefs is, as ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. And that's in Luke 6, verse 31. And every religion has its equivalent version. Unitarian Mary Wollstonecraft said, and she knew it way back in 17, whenever it was, end of the 18th century, 1790 something, there must be more equality established in society, or morality will never gain ground. And this virtuous equality will not rest firmly, even when founded on a rock, if one half of mankind be chained to the bottom by fate. And she was talking about all types of equalities, not just women and men, but men and men, etc., etc. Equality is really key and one of the drivers for war, as we know. So let's sing our second hymn, Dear Lord and Father of Mankind, number 101 in the Green Book. So what would Jesus think of what's happening? What would he think? What would the man who came to knock heads together, to call out hypocrisy and bring peace, to a war-torn land. Think of the way in which the bombs are scorching Mother Earth. What regard do these leaders have for the divine feminine? As we learn with increasing horror that 70% of the dead in Gaza are women and children, and half of all hospitalizations are children. Yes, there's always been war, and the Napoleonic Wars killed how many? 3 million soldiers. Civilian deaths were enormous. But it was a long way away, wasn't it? People didn't have to think about it. We can see it on our television screens. We can see the bombs falling, and we can see the pain. So I turned to one of my spiritual teachers, Mirabai Starr, in her book, Wild Mercy, and just turned to the chapter she calls Our Mother, the Earth. And she reminds us that when Christianity collided with indigenous religions around the world, the Earth Mother, Our Lady of the Corn, fused with Mary, Mother of Christ, and Our Lady of Guadalupe emerged. Her skin was dark, yet her features were European. And she made it clear that she was the mother of all people, and that her task and her delight was to love us, to give us shelter, to comfort our hearts, and to protect us. The appearance of Our Lady in the 16th century in the Valley of Mexico coincided with the height of the Spanish conquest, when the colonizers were systematically eradicating indigenous culture, murdering dissenters, and strangling the rights of the native people. 'Twas ever thus. And the tender mercy of Mother Mary alchemically melded with the fierce power of the Mother of the Corn, and a glorious advocate emerged. And Our Lady of Guadalupe bypassed the fear and suspicion engendered by the oppressors and offered a reconciling love that has continued as a wellspring of support for the peoples of Latin America for 5 centuries. Her image, standing on a crescent moon encircled by stars, adorns the walls of barrios and the hoods of pickup trucks, roadside shrines and flower gardens from Los Angeles to the Yucatan, and some refer to her as the goddess of the Americas. And the medieval visionary Hildegard of Bingen got away with worshipping Mother Earth in the midst of running her Benedictine abbey because she showed her to us through the church-approved lens of Mother Mary and Mother Sophia. Otherwise, she would likely have been marked as a pagan and condemned as a heretic. In Hildegard's theology, Mary merges with Sophia, Mother Wisdom, who dips one wing to earth while the other soars heavenwards, and in her ecstatic flight quickens life. She was enamored with the Creator and enamored by every element of creation. Her mysticism is intimate, erotic even, and she coined the term viriditas to evoke the lush, extravagant, moist, and verdant quality of the divine, manifesting as greening power. And this life-giving energy is imbued with a distinctly feminine quality. And Starr reminds us that Mother Mary agrees to show up as mother to the whole world. She doesn't do it alone. She's linked to every mother everywhere, forward and backward in time. And Starr says that there is a great need for mothering the world together right now. So I am going to invite you to listen to what I think is one of Sinead O'Connor's most beautiful mystical songs, and allow yourself to hear the comfort of her words and feel the cloak of protection she puts around you. The song works on different levels. She's singing to her own inner child, as well as to ours, and referencing the mother figure of God, whatever that looks like for you. And then we'll say together the Lord's Prayer, and we'll have some prayers and some silence, but just allow yourself to listen to this for a while.
This is to mother you, comfort you, let you through It seems to be you, to hold you and to kiss you too. For when you need me, I will do what your own mother didn't do, which is to mother you. Oh, the pain that you have known. Oh, the violence in your soul. Oh, the wrongs you have done. I will take from you when I come. All mistakes made to distract. Oh, your happiness I will take away with my gifts. Yes, I will give you tenderness. For our child, I'm so glad I found you. Although my arms have always been around you. Sweet girl, you did not see me. I saw you, and I'm here to you. Comfort you, get you through. Through the nights alone, through when your dreams around me. This is you.
I think you have the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, which is translated by Neil Donald Klotz. I invite us to say it together. You don't have to, but, and then we'll have a few more prayers. O Bertha, Father, Mother of the Cosmos, focus your light within us, make it useful. Create your reign of unity now. Through our fiery hearts and willing hands, help us love beyond our ideals and sprout acts of compassion for all creatures. Animate the earth within us. We then feel the wisdom underneath, supporting all. Untangle the knots within so that we can commend our heart's simple ties to each other. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back from our true purpose. Out of you, the astonishing fire, returning light and sound to the cosmos. Amen. God of every beautiful thing, make us people of wonder. Show us how to hold on to nuance and vision when our souls become addicted to pain and to the unlovely. It is far easier to see the gloom and decay, so often it sings a louder song. Attune our hearts to the good still stirring in our midst, not that we would forget the evil and conflict in the world, nor neglect all the pain that we see around us, but that we would be people capable of existing in the tension. Grant us habits of sacred pause. Let us marvel not just at the grand or majestic, but beauty's name etched into everything ordinary. Let the mundane swell with a mystery that makes us breathe deeper still. And by this may we be sustained and kept from despair. Amen. Thank you, Stuart. Our third hymn, I didn't have to get up there, did I? It was a waste of energy, is hymn number 205 in the purple. When I See the Purple Heather.
I
So as you know, I have a lot of time for mystics, and Richard Rohr is a modern day mystic. And he recently posted some interesting words that can really help us make sense of a challenging world. And he says that he thinks we need to grasp the truth of something that seems a contradiction, because paradox undermines dual thinking. At the root, the dualistic mind immediately attacks paradox as weak thinking or confusion, somehow separate to hard logic. Today, the church is trying to catch up with what mystics have always known and great scientists teach as well. Life is profoundly paradoxical. On the surface, we live in a world of separate things, but at the depths, all is one. We cannot think about the deep mysteries of life using normal logic. Logical thinking says that light is either a wave or a particle. It cannot be both. Paralogical thinking, which Timon Freak talks about in his writing, says that light can be both a wave and a particle because life is inherently paradoxical. Logical thinking says something is true, the opposite being false. Paralogical thinking is based on the realization that on a deep level, life is paradoxical. So the opposite of a paralogical truth is also true. Opposite perspectives can both be true. Ancient Taoist understanding is that reality is characterized by the primal polarity of yin and yang, opposites which paradoxically coexist and complement each other. And many of the greatest philosophers believed in the union of the opposites. And one of the greatest ways of understanding universal concepts and truths is to turn to poetry. And one of the first great spiritual texts I was given as a young adult, bless her, my mother gave it to me, was The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Have we all read that? And this wonderful poem about joy and sorrow speaks to something mysterious and yet very clear at the same time. And Dinah's going to read that for us.
On joy and sorrow. Then a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." And he answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked. And the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say, "Joy is greater than sorrow," and others say, "Nay, sorrow is the greater." But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. Verily you are suspended like scales between your sorrow and your joy. Only when you are empty are you at a standstill and balanced. When the treasure keeper lifts you to weigh his gold and his silver, needs must your joy or your sorrow rise or fall.
Thank you. So, the modern phenomenon of fundamentalism displays an almost complete incapacity to deal with paradox. And this can be seen so clearly in most conflicts, Israel and Gaza being a case in point. It's not an either-or situation, but a both-and, as Freak would say. The way in which people have taken sides in this war, have vilified the other, failed to accept the inherent and complex, paradoxical nature of the situation, reveals the need for people of good faith to step up now and try and give peace a chance. On the one hand, the attack on Israel by Hamas was a war crime and should be punished. And at the same time, the continued onslaught perpetrated on innocent civilians could also be described as a war crime. Surely they can both be true at the same time. How can we live this contradiction? Mystics talk of the God experience as falling into the abyss and being held. If we surrender to this experience, discover its limitless support, we're not judged, we're just held. This might be the ultimate paradox of the God experience, falling into the hands of the living God. This process grows our faith. It takes time, and the source of spiritual wisdom is to hold questions and contradictions patiently. There's no quick fix, which the dualistic mind and the ego want. The ego seeks to be always right and is not interested in the mysterious, solid ground of the abyss. So much religion is simplistic and a security blanket for those in need of control, rather than those able to surrender control. The evangelical Christians in America, for example, or even the Orthodox Jews in Israel spring to mind, don't they? So we need help, all of us, learning to negotiate the darkness, to accept our shadow, resisting the temptation to project onto the other and dehumanize them. We need to be able to wait, to hold on and live in liminal or threshold space. The dualistic mind just can't do that. The non-dual mind can. It relishes and revels in mystery, and we need to sustain it in our own spiritual practice, and it does take time. So I invite you to look at the two stained glass windows, the two beautiful stained glass windows that we have in our space that are there with us every time we come and worship. What can you see? You can see we're honoring those who've fallen in the First World War, because we do. There are many pacifists, I'm sure, amongst us who think war can never be justified. And they're probably here today, but here in this church we honor them. And we also have the peacemaker. And we hold the two, don't we? It's not an either or. They're both here. We hold the paradox in this environment, in this place, in this sanctuary. So we've got a treat now, a final hymn. It's an absolute delight to introduce Lucy and her merry band for our final song, and Lucy's going to introduce it for us. It's one of my all-time favorites because I'm of a certain age. Lucy, come on. And let's give it some welly, folks.
Think about Lucy and the band. The band.
Band of very merry men.
So it's number 204, and we'll do the first verse, and then if you could all just join in. Like, by the time we've done 2 verses, if you don't know it, you'll know it, and it'll all be fine.
Right. Go straight in. 2, 3, 4. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall hand in hand someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday.
Welly.
Truth shall make us free. Truth shall make us free. Truth shall make us free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe truth shall make us free someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Thank you so much. So we're coming to the end of our time together, and didn't I do well? Fallen down. Just a couple of quotes from inspirational women to leave you with. Etty Hilsum, who I talked about the other day, I think was a Dutch Jew who was born in 1914 and murdered in Auschwitz in 1943, said this: "Why is there a war? Because I and my neighbor and everyone else do not have enough love. Yet we could fight war and all its excrescences by releasing each day the love that is shackled inside us and giving it a chance." And Helen Keller, first deaf-blind person to gain a degree and to work for disability rights, women's suffrage, birth control, and pacifism, said, "The struggle with evil makes us strong, patient, helpful men and women. It let us into the souls of things. It lets us into the soul of things and teaches us that although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it. My optimism then does not rest on the absence of evil, but on a glad belief in the preponderance of good and a willing effort always to cooperate with the good, that it may prevail. And a final blessing as we end our time together. Remember the invocation of Imbolc, the twinkle of an idea, the light that illuminates manifestation, the spark of life in all things. Let these gifts stay with you and remain with you today and for as long as you need them. And may you receive the peace of God which passes all understanding, now and always. Amen.